Welcome to Home Remodeler Toolbox, the podcast dedicated to empowering remodelers and builders to build and grow successful businesses. Join your host, Bob Vance, founder of Home Remodeler SEO, as he brings you industry insights and strategies that will help you build a thriving business, no matter what level you're at in your business. Whether you're a thriving multi-million-dollar business or you're working on building your business from the foundation up, this podcast is your go-to source for industry secrets and actionable strategies that you can implement in your business to get to that next level. So, turn on, tune in, and let's help you build your business foundation one building block at a time.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast today. Really happy and excited to bring to you a special guest today, Frank Manzare, former co-founder of Statewide Remodeling in Texas. Frank is a seasoned expert in the remodeling space, been in business for, I think, about 45 years. Built a successful company with Statewide Remodeling before making a successful exit. I think Frank's going to have a lot of great insights to share today. Really looking forward to diving in. Frank, thanks for taking some time out of your busy day to jump into our podcast interview today.
Hey, Bob, you're welcome. This is, I've done similar things like this, not actually videos, but back in the company days, I did radio interviews with, they had some home improvement shows, and it was always fun. And they take call-ins and things. And, have been in the business. I'm an old guy and I've been in the business a long time, but I've learned a lot and paid a lot of dumb tax. And I was able to grow from that. And we were successful in selling the company.
Awesome. I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that successful exit. Pretty incredible. I know that story. So I'm looking forward to sharing that. But let's kind of rewind and take it back to your humble beginnings. When did you get started? What really got you into the remodeling industry, and then eventually what led to you founding Statewide Remodeling there in Texas?
Well, it's a long story, Bob, so I'll try to keep it brief. I was going to college at North Texas State. I think you and I talked about that briefly. You're a college football fan, I believe, and you said something about the Mean Green. I went to school there part-time and worked full-time, right after high school. I took a year off and just goofed around for a year. And was a senior. Major was, what was it? I was majoring in political science. I wanted to go to law school. And, I'm feeling okay. Probably carried a B average. I mean, I wasn't, a cum laude or whatever those people are. But, and my brother, who was a sales guy, selling motorcycles, got to know some guys that owned the aluminum siding company. And he just kept telling me, oh man, you need to meet some of these guys. They're all driving Cadillacs and Lincolns and wearing Rolex watches and blah, blah, blah. So anyway, I ended up going to a Christmas party at one of these places where he had worked. And I ended up quitting college and started selling siding. And I did it for about 2 years and learned a lot. But I didn't like all the rejection that went with it because it was almost like glory roller sales. And so I got out of it for a couple of years and wandered around and did some different things. And then was able to go to work for a company called American Remodeling, which eventually went public. And when they did, they had to change their name to Amry. If there's any people that are watching the podcast that go back in the 80s and 90s that were in the remodeling business in the United States, they know who Amry was. I mean, the guys that founded the company and started it on the cover of Fortune magazine, they're on the cover of Inc. magazine. I mean, they did something nobody ever done. And it was almost for me like going to home improvement college because I really learned from those guys. I went to work as a salesperson in their second office, which was Dallas, Texas. And then I had the opportunity and opened their third office in Houston, Texas. And I was really in over my head. It was a general manager job. And my background was totally sales. And the president of the company, who was a sharp guy, he was actually office in my office. That's their deal they did when they were new. They put an owner in an office, and they had 3 owners and 3 offices. And he offered me a job to start doing training. He said, I want you to develop a training program, and I want you to go move to Austin to where our corporate office was. We've now moved it to Dallas. Austin's a smaller market. You'll just be a sales manager and a sales trainer there. And I said, his name was Steve. And I said, Steve, why do you think I'd be a good sales trainer? And he looked at me and he goes, Frank, you're one of the most hyper people I've ever met. And people interpret that as enthusiasm. And he'd be, you're a trainer. I'm going, well, I'll take the deal. I needed the job. But anyway, so I was there for 11 years and I worked my way up from salesman, branch manager, district manager, region manager, and then a national sales manager. And two of the last 3 years when I was at Emory, I had 23 branches, 300 salesmen that reported to me. Indirectly, I had 3 district managers and a region or 2 manager. I covered everything they had west of the Mississippi. So every office they had, there was about 23 at the time. And then the last year I was there, I was a district manager. The ownership changed from the company, but they had 72 offices and we're doing about $300 million a year. And, in 1993 or 4, that was that year, our average sale price, all we sold was siding. We did some cabinet refacing, but our average sale was probably $4,000, $4,500. So you're doing, almost $300 million a year at an average sale of that. That's a bunch of business they were doing.
You're doing something right.
A lot of work. And the new owner, he did not dislike me, but he didn't like the amount of money I was making. But I'd been there since almost the beginning. And so they wanted me to relocate and I didn't want to relocate. I traveled 40 weeks a year for many years up to that point. And I said, his name was Ron. I said, Ron, I don't, I said, my wife, my family's struggling, my family life. I had 2 young daughters. And I said, I need to stay here. And I don't want to pull him up. And he said, we don't have a job for you at the amount of money we're paying. I said, well, make me an offer. And he never did. 2 more months go by. So I went to talk to the guy that I reported to as a VP. And I said, his name's Dan. What's my options? He goes, well, Frank, you can leave and get your severance package. And so we did the numbers and the severance package was good 6-figure number. And, so I started thinking about that. I'm going, well, I was 45 and 44 actually. And I said, if I'm going to start my own business, now it's time to do it. And they gave me the money they had would have covered me for about 1.5 years. So if I didn't make a dime, I could have paid my bills and continue. And we had a nice lifestyle. I'd mentioned to you before we started it. We lived in a nice house in a town called Colleyville outside of Fort Worth, 2 BMWs and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to impact my family if I didn't have to. So I started Statewide. And I remember, then newspaper advertising was still big. If we copied one of our competitors that was doing newspaper inserts. And so we ran some ads. I created the inserts. I ran the first lead, sold the first job. I remember selling that first job and the guy, he was a retired General Motors assembly plant. This was, we're in the Fort Worth area and the GM assembly plant's in Arlington, Texas. And so this guy retired. His wife was a nurse. Real nice people, frame house. And I got down to the close and I talked to a friend of mine, good friend from high school, whose dad, mom and dad, I had sold siding to when I was at Emory. And I asked him, I called his dad up and I said, can I use you for a reference? I'm starting a business. He goes, well, sure. Yeah, man, not a problem. So I had that one name and phone number there. And the guy, the GM guy that I'm trying to close, he goes, well, could you give me a reference? And I said, well, I'll tell you. I said, you can ask that of any company, but nobody's going to give you a reference of a bad job they did. They're all going to tell you about the good ones. And I said, but I do have one number here that you can call. And he goes, well, what about your other jobs? And I'm kind of him hauling around, and I'm a pretty good salesman. Even then, I could think good quick on my feet. And finally, after him hauling around, the wife goes, whatever his name was, we'll use John. She goes, John, obviously, that's a problem, but I think he's a good guy, and we don't have to pay him till the job's done. He comes and says, let's just get this done. Yeah, I sold the job, and that's where it started.
Off and running from there.
Off from the city, yep. And it was slowly. We started out, my partner and I, and we rented 2 offices in a building because we needed some address for a company, and you had to walk through my office to get to his office. It wasn't like it was down the hall. It was like, it was pretty humble beginnings. And because we both had reputations, and I had good reputations, and I had a couple of guys that had worked for me in sales at the Sears company, knew was going to start a company. And they said, if you start that business, I want to come to work for you. And so I'm talking to this guy and he's working for another company, a competitor, and they have a call center. And they use back then predictive dialers. I don't know if anybody that's hearing this goes back that far. Predictive dialing's still around, but it's not the kind of equipment then that it's all software now. He says, there's a guy running the call center for this company I work for, and the owner's not treating him right. And, I think he'd come to work for you because I've told him what a good guy you are and your partner. And anyway, long story kind of short, we ended up hiring that guy. Well, when he came, he brought 6 telemarketers with him. And when he brought the 6 telemarketers, the guy that worked for him brought 5 salesmen with it. So in about 3 months, we went from me to 6 salespeople. And it was a learning experience because I've been running around for the last 11 years selling with Sears. And, through the 80s and 90s, early 90s, Sears was bigger than Walmart. So, we had no problem getting in the door. People knew who we were. The credibility factor was established. And we're calling on the telephone at Statewide Remodeling when nobody knew who we were. We weren't in existence 3 months ago. But it worked out. We had a lot of credit rejects initially, quite a few cancellations. I was still running leads and working, and then we got big enough to where we could hire a sales manager for our Dallas operation. And when we did that, I started focusing on marketing. And then we continued to grow the company. We got an affiliation with them. I guess I could say this. We got an affiliation with Sam's Club. We were a vendor for Sam's Club for many years. We were their vendor of the year for our product line, obviously, which was siding and replacement windows. And, we had a little kiosk in the Sam's Clubs. Then we got hooked up with Home Depot. We started selling sunrooms through Home Depot. And Metals Inc. was the manufacturer. They were the ones that put the master agreement together with Home Depot. But we got in, and then that turned into a big business, and it still is for Statewide today. They still do some Sam's Club business, but the business continued to grow. We started selling sunrooms. That was a big plus. And, we started doing things like, I was constantly looking for new ways to get leads because, my philosophy on the business, and I learned it at the Sears company, is that salespeople work there. They don't have to like me. They're there because of the leads. They're there to try to make a living. And as long as I could give them as an owner a place to go, then I think they'll continue to work for us. And they did. So I continued to look for ways to get more leads, better leads. And we were able to do that all the way up to, like I said, 2019, when we sold the company. I think that last year, I'm going back and look, we did $58 million in installed business. We were installing about 400 jobs a month. We did bath. We got into bath liners, and it's a much bigger part of their business now. I worked last year. They hired me as a consultant. I may have told you this earlier at Statewide, and I worked as they call me the media director, I think.
Give you a fancy title.
Yeah, I worked from home. I didn't have an office. I didn't even go into the office. But that's kind of the story. That's the snapshot. I can certainly go into more details and answer more questions. As I said before we started today, that, we paid a lot of dumb tax. We learned a lot of stuff from trial and error. And I think that's probably, the couple of opportunities I've had since I retired to talk to other people in the industry that had questions, that this is what this is going to save you from doing. It's going to from paying that dumb tax.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to jump into because a lot of us, including myself, I've paid the dumb tax as well, and I still continue to make payments into that. You don't know what you don't know. You're going to make those mistakes, and so the whole idea is networking. The whole idea of a podcast like this is to help people to share those insights, so maybe you don't have to pay as much into that dumb tax. Your trajectory for your business is not common. It's not where you started is not where you ended up. You said you were hoping to hit 8,000 a year in income, and you ended up at 58 million when you sold the business. How did that, what was that initial vision, and what do you really think changed that vision over time? Is it something that was just gradually kept changing over time throughout all those years, or was there any kind of an epiphany you had, some inflection point that said, "Hey, we've really got something here that we can scale, and let's run with that idea"? Like, tell me a little bit about that initial vision to where you ended up.
Our initial, we were hoping, and the guy that I was partners with was one of the old owners at the Emery company. They had gone public, and he retired. And, they had some issues, and he left, and his partner left. And he and I were neighbors. He was a little older than me, but we both, his 2 daughters, I had 2 daughters. And we were in Dad's club together because we lived right around the corner from each other. So we continued to see each other. We were in Indian Princesses together, familiar with that organization, through the Y. It's a dads and daughters deal. There's camping involved and things. It's fun stuff to do with the kids. Indian guide thing for the dads and sons. But it was Indian Princess with the dads and daughters. And so his name is Rob. And Rob and I, spent time together. Not a lot. I wouldn't say we were ever close friends, even though we were good and close business partners when we were, working together. But he was not going to get, I asked him initially about partnering. He said, no, I'm done with remodeling business, blah, blah, blah. And I looked at some other opportunities as leading up to me actually leaving, Amory. And then that didn't work out. That was, of course, over about 6 months. And I went back to him one day just on a whim, but we were talking. I said, and he goes, I consider getting back in the business. He goes, what are you thinking? And so I was kind of the front man. I mean, I was the guy that went out and found the guy that, as I mentioned, the call center, the sales guy that came to me that was working there that had worked for Amory, knew me and knew that he felt like a good guy and trusted. I mean, the managers, all the managers that ever worked for me, I think all felt like I never heard anything, rumors that, oh, well, you didn't do this right, or, they wished you'd done this. And I had some business, I learned all from hard knocks and dumb tacks like we're talking, but I think I was real fair with people. And so when we talk about the company, what do you envision us doing in 5 years? It was like $5 million. It was $4 or $5 million a year, making 10%. So that'd be about $500,000 before tax. That's $250 each. And I mean, he had plenty of money. And I'm thinking I was making close to that range when I left the Sears company. And I'm thinking I'm comfortable. So what else is there? So we started the company, and then it went from telemarketing to, we said we were going to be out of telemarketing in 5 years. Because I mean, it was a tough experience. It was a tough lead. And, but it took us 8 years to finally get away from it. And we got away from it when the do not call list started, and we followed that. We downloaded all our numbers, and our dollars were cleaned against the do not call list. We were in there used to be a retail place here called Garden Ridge Stores, and Garden Ridge was a chain of kind of like your Michaels, but not a lot of hobby stuff, but more home decor, pillows and, different things, curtains and things like that. And we got in there and we did a big business with it, but we just started a sweepstakes, rest their winter-free sunroom, not uncommon in our industry. A lot of companies do it for windows or a bath, home makeover, win $50,000, and you generate leads. You call the people and try to turn it into an appointment versus just an entry form. And we had just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these little tickets people would fill out, and they'd sign and they'd give us their phone number, and it said on there, you're giving us permission to call you. And what happened was, after 6 months, after we got that, because it went into our CRM, how we managed our leads, we shred them because it was personal information. Well, it turns out that we got in trouble with the Attorney General, that we had complaints from people that their number was on the do not call list, and it was. But when you went and look our system, we had their name and phone number in there. It wasn't like we solicited them out of the blue. And so the Attorney General filed a complaint. I was the only one that got involved in it with the guy that ran our call center. We came to Austin then and went and talked to this Attorney General, and there's 110 complaints, but these were all at least 2 years old. Several of the numbers on there were our own numbers that you would call to call my company. And so I'm going, why did you guys notify this? I said, we destroyed these sheets of paper after 6 months. I had a sheet of paper with a signature on it. If you had notified me in a timely manner, the Attorney General said, we don't have to do anything. So we pretty cool to what we do. Long story short, we paid a $10,000 fine, unplugged all the dollars, and that was the end of telemarketing. On a roll. And it was tough that first year and a half. We had to replace about $2 million worth of business that came from cold calling. So we really kind of got turbocharged into events. We started doing the Fort Worth Stock Show. We started doing the State Fair. We were always doing home shows. But then we started doing other things. I'm a car guy. I've been in cars back when we started the company. So heck, we had a booth at car shows. Good Guys, which is a huge car event when it comes to Texas Motor Speedway, and they're all over the country. We'd have a booth out there, and I'd put one of my cars in the booth because people would stop to look at the car, and then the promoter would come up and go, hey, are you a homeowner? We were, and it just, it got to 5 million, 8 million. And I think when we quit dialing, it was about 8 or 9 million a year. Then we got in Sam's Club, and that was just through association with our sunroom manufacturer. And that's a lot of how I learned. And, if there's people that are watching this, that are in associations, in other words, who they buy their products from, whether it's windows, acrylic liner product, roofing materials, all of these groups have associations. Well, I always went to those roundtable meetings. There's a wealth of knowledge from these other dealers, and it's somebody that's in your trade or business, but they're not your competitor.
Right.
I'm from Texas. I'm talking to a guy that's got an office in Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Portland, Oregon, New York. They're happy to share Because, and that was from the beginning, because the guys knew that we came from a national company. We had no interest in doing anything outside of Texas. It was like there was a moat around the state, and that we didn't look at Oklahoma City. Now, they're all over the place now. Statewide has grown, with the acquisition that happened, and they're in several states. But Rob and I's MO was, we're a Texas company. I mean, on our old logo, which they changed, it said Statewide Remodeling, Texas' most recommended remodeler, and it had an outline of the state of Texas. I probably have a shirt around here somewhere.
I've seen that logo. Yep.
Still work. Yeah, after 25 years, that was a trademark logo. The new owners changed it. Their business. Hey, I understand. But I went to great lengths to trademark that logo and had to do certain things like, the attorneys that helped me do it told me, said, well, you got to have a label on something on a product. So, and we sold thousands of windows. So I had labels made, and my guys in my warehouse in Dallas and Austin, Houston, and San Antonio, when any window product came in the warehouse, a label got slapped on it, had the logo, and said another energy efficient window from Statewide Remodeling. So, there's little things like that. And it's just, taking pride in the business and getting excited about it. And
Yeah.
Salesman, it's no Zig. I'm an old Zig Ziglar guy. I told you that the other day when we talked, and, his tons of his, sayings. And one of them was, is if you want to be enthusiastic, act enthusiastic, because there really is no difference. And
Right.
people kind of like that. How people, would consider me hyper. And that's where Bedowitz, the old guy that owned the Sears case, said, man, I've never known anybody more hyper than you are. People interpret that as enthusiasm. And I'm like, well, I'm enthusiastic. But anyway, and I think that's what helped grow the company. It wasn't just me. My partner contributed just like I did. But we just saw opportunity. And I think that when manufacturers talk, because they do, they go, these guys down in Texas, they got something going on. And we had a good attitude. We had good sales meetings. We, I respected the salespeople that worked for us. We tried to work out programs that supported them, not just in day-to-day sales that benefited us as a company, but things that benefited them. We had sales contests. It was called, whatever my partner called it, but at a certain level every month of volume, he would send out a $250 gift card to either the wife, girlfriend, significant other, mother, if you wanted it to somewhere like Nordstrom. And then he'd send a letter with it. Want to let you know that Bill qualified this month, and enclosed is your $250 gift card. I think we got a lot of mileage out of that with our salespeople. Because, you come home after running leads at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, there's no dinner on the table because it's too late. And, a lot of the spouses, significant others, that's a tough deal. But when they see the results and they get included, hey, I got that gift card today. Hey.
Yeah, that is sell. That's just one of those kind of tips and tricks that you use, right? I mean, you have to stay ahead of the competition somehow, some way. So what are you doing differently? What is your USP? What are you offering? It can't just be, we're the best company because we got a great reputation or we've been doing this for 30 years. You have to bring a little something else to the table, right?
Yeah, I think we did that. I think that's one of the things that did. That as the company grew, we got health insurance, and, we put together a 401k plan. There was, I remember a story, and we go on to the next question. When I was at Amory, national sales manager, when they went public, they were public in 87, a long way back there now. They would have these institutional investors. They were traded over the counter, then went to the New York Exchange. But these institutional investors, like mutual funds, would come in once a year, and they wanted to interview the upper management to decide how many hundreds of thousands of shares they might buy. So we're at one of these meetings, and I'm sitting up on the stage. I was a national sales manager, and the guy that's the president and founder of the company, is up on the podium, and there's probably 10 of these guys. I think maybe met a woman or two out there, but it's mostly men. They come from these mutual funds, institutional type stuff. Guy raises his hand, and he goes, Mr. Bedowitz, I'm curious. I understand that your salesmen don't get any kind of salary. They're just paid straight commission. And he goes, that's right. And he goes, I don't quite understand how that works. He said, they've got to have a car putting a bunch of miles on it. They're running deployments every day. I understand, so they're driving a lot. And he goes, let me explain to you how straight commission works. He said, when you're driving down the road, he said, everybody that you pass is getting paid by the hour. Everybody that passes you's on straight commission. I said, thank you very much. We sat down. So it's a mindset. There's a mentality, about this business. Some companies pay salaries now. Some companies have a combination salary and bonus. And I think you can get any of those programs to work. But if you put together and structure a compensation program that's lucrative to the salesman, and you stand behind it. My old saying was, I don't look at your money, you don't look at mine. If I made a deal with a salesman, if he went out there and just knocked it out of the park and he's making double at what every other salesman's making, that means I'm making double.
Yeah.
I stage his deal. I'm going to figure out how to get everybody else to do it.
Yeah. You're not trying to steal his money. You're trying to figure out how you can help him make more money, which makes you more money.
He's just kind of morphed into, we got association with Sam's Club. Oh, we're working with Home Depot. We worked with Costco for a while, but that was never a large portion of our business, never more than about 20 or 25%.
Right.
Take over the company. It never controlled the company. I mean, we had to deal with the issues that came with those, affiliations, which basically meant that, you were responsible for everything. There was some downside to that. It wasn't all, got a bunch of great leads, license fees, things like that are included. But it is nice when you go in the house and you can name drop that name, even if it's not their lead. Oh, well, we do a lot of work for, big box stores, like Home Depot. And I mean, I can talk forever about how that got worked in a sense. It wasn't anything that was unethical, because I had people all the time. My partner and I were very, I don't know what the word I'm trying to think of. His philosophy is you had to put in so many hours a day. And, he was an accountant by trade. Well, that kind of work's done at the desk. I'm a salesman. That kind of work's done out in the field. And so I would tell people, I'd say, hey, as long as it's not illegal or unethical, I don't care how you get it done. So it's like I used to make a comparison between he and I, is that, well, when you're in school and your professor or your teacher goes, hey, okay, we got a test and I want you to show me your work. I said, that's my partner. I want to take the answer.
I'll give you the answers. That's it. Yeah. What, speaking of finding a secret answer here, I mean, you grew from nothing to a few million to 58 million. And, besides working with the big box brands, like, just how did you build your brand? When it comes to growing that big, you have to have that brand awareness. You have to be that recognized brand that everyone says, I know I can trust Statewide Remodeling. They're going to do a great job. They're great people. They back up their work, great customer service, great quality craftsmanship, whatever it may be. What's a secret or two that really helped get you to that 400 jobs a month? Because that's volume. That speaks a lot to your company and what people thought of your brand in general, and not just, having some deals.
It was about below $5 million in volume installed every month, including December. Bob, it goes back, and you being a marketing guy can appreciate this. It's when we first started doing marketing stuff, I'd have people from the radio station, newspapers, the home improvement magazines and things like that. They would come in and talk to me because I was the guy that did, marketing it. And every one of them would say, well, you got to do it at least 3 times. If you're going to run an ad in the paper, if you're going to run a radio campaign, you need to stay on for 3 months, TV. And I'm as a salesman going, yeah, that's a bunch of sales baloney. That's just blah, blah, blah. So I tried one time, but it never worked, and after, because I used to joke about it, I said, I know that doesn't work, and I got the canceled checks to prove it, because we spent a ton of money on advertising stuff, because the agreement that my partner and I had is that starting the company up, within 5 years, we were going to be out of telemarketing, and we were going to be strictly non-telemarketing. We were going to work off, media type stuff and things like that. And we said, we're going to take X amount of dollars out of the company, and it wasn't near the amount of money that I wanted to make. And everything else after that goes into advertising. So we set a budget up. We set an ad ratio up, and it's 15%. That was our tolerance level for what we could spend on a lead, basically 15%. So it was a $5,000 deal. You had $750 basically allocated at the back end to be applied to marketing. And the first person that came in to talk to me, I got it with somebody. Well, actually, it was an ad agency. I boss of this paper, and they explained to me what TOMA was. TOMA. Top of mind awareness. That's what marketing is. And I stand to this day, I'm sure you would agree as well, is that's what it's about. Because one of the many sales jobs I had at Amway, the Sears company, for 1 year I worked in marketing. They closed down the division that I was national sales manager of. That's a whole other story. And they offered me a job. You said you can be a region manager in siding, or you could be a national sales manager over this wooden deck division that they were creating. And it was neat. It was a cool product. It was a one-day deck install built in the factory. But the good part is that when they killed that, or not that job, I got that wrong. They didn't offer me that job. I had that job. When they stopped it, they said you could be a region manager or you could be the director of in-store marketing. Now, we had about 400 in-store marketing promoters that worked in Sears stores around the country. And it was a very interesting experience for me because, no disrespect, but most of them were ladies, and most salespeople that worked for our company at the time were men. So, it was a different thing for me, but I got to sit in on it, and they were spending 50 to 55 million a year in advertising. And this is in like 1989. I mean, so what's that today? 110, 50 million? And so I sat in on these meetings with all these high-powered executives from Metro Mail, Polk, AI Coffin Company, because they were dropping 250 to 300 million pieces of mail a year. But I'd run those leads. And so I'm sitting there in these meetings, and this meeting would start with 8 o'clock, and they, donuts and coffee in the corner. They bring in lunch, they bring in dinner, and you might get home at 10 o'clock. I mean, it was a marathon.
You put in your time.
Oh, yeah, well, they're doing these offers. You've seen them. It's a mailer where you take the sticker off here, you stick the sticker, and we know when they send that one in that's got a 20% more likelihood of sales than the one they, I mean, these people that analyze.
Know your numbers.
Exactly. Here's what I found out. So we offered on the mailers, we had a 5%, a 10% to 15% off on the mailer, and they changed every quarter. And if you called off the mailer, you got an extra 5% off. So it was really 10, 15, or 20 off total if you called. And so, they're explaining the differences, and the 20% didn't necessarily get more leads. So I'm thinking I ran those leads. That's all they did. That was the first advertising that they did. That's how I went to work for them. When they tried to hire me to go to work in Dallas in their second office, one of the things I said is, how are you going to get leads? Because I've been running telemarketing leads, giving away Reynolds Wrap as a promotion. We may have talked about that the other day. And that's you. And anybody listening wants to know what a lead is, I'll tell them. And you want to know what a hard lead is when the salesman says, "Oh man, the leads are SHI." You know what? No, I'll tell you a story. You go, "What? You sold those?" Anyway, so I'd go to the customer's house, do your Sears customer, Sears lead, and I always ask, "How'd you hear about us?" "Well, I do. They got a mailer." "Oh, we got that little thing in the mail, that card in the mail." "Really? Do you have to have it?" "Oh, yeah. A lot of people stick them on the refrigerator." I'd have people come back with 3 or 4 of them because every quarter they got one. And the one I'm looking at was 10% off. And I'm going, well, this one back 3 months ago was 20% off, 15. Why didn't you call then? Well, we weren't ready. So that's what it taught me, is top of mind awareness. They saved every one of those mailers, but when they were ready, they didn't expect to get the 20 off. They knew they were only going to get 10. So I think, we don't, and I said it to you when we talked the other day, you don't create market, you take market. And marketing is what takes market. Advertising is what takes market. Is people see you, they see you, they're not ready, they're in the selling cycle, you don't know where they are. I had a guy, Brad Forsyth, that owned an agency and used to be working with, and he first started working with me. He said, "Let me tell you how to advertise." And he had a dry erasure board, and he drew a big circle on it and drew an arrow through it. And on one end was a little, the sharp points from the arrowhead, and on the back end were the feathers. And so the feathers are on the way going in and the arrowhead's coming out. And he goes, "These people up here with the arrowhead are people that were in the market, but they're not anymore. These people inside the circle are in the market right now. And these people with the feathers are getting ready to be in the market. You advertise to all 3.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I have this conversation with our clients and other, people I know through associations all the time, where they're not staying top of mind. They don't use retargeting marketing, or they get a lead and then they call them once and they don't get an answer, and then they just let them go. And it's like, you've got to be marketing to these people. You have to stay top of mind for these people for as long as you can, until they say, "We already went, with someone else," or "Please stop emailing me, please stop, texting me." Otherwise, they're still in the market, because, a lot of these remodeling decisions are, six-figure decisions, maybe even $1 million remodel. These people aren't making this decision, over a couple weeks time. They're going to think about it and they're going to kick it around. They're going to get their finances in order and whatever. You got to be marketing to them that whole time. And I don't think a lot of people really understand that. I don't know why. It seems like a simple concept, but it's hard to break through to some people and get that through to you. Have to have that sales follow up, that sales lead nurture, basically.
I can tell you from experience, that's exactly right. I mean, I can't speak for everybody's situation all over the country. They may be in different, markets with different demographics, but I think human nature, is very much the same everywhere. I mean, you can go back to your basic, instinct stuff. The fear of loss is stronger than the opportunity for gain. I mean, if you're a one-call closer, which we were, then you've got, we were called a specialty contractor. You probably work with people like my old company, and then you have your design build group. These are the people that go out and do the designing and the engineering, and we're building a, $300,000-$400,000 job. Our sales cycle may be 3-4 months. My sales cycle was first time, one day. We came into your house, we trained our salespeople, we designed everything we did for them to walk out of there with a sale. Now, it doesn't mean we quit talking to the people.
Right.
We did some stuff what's called rehash when you call back. We'd have rehash parties at some of the offices, maybe a Thursday night. We'd have all the sales guys come in at 6:00 and wouldn't issue any late leads. We'd order up a half dozen pizzas and everybody sat around. There was occasionally some beer there. I don't want to promote that, but there was occasionally some beer there. And so, these guys are on the phone calling. And if they got appointments, they either got that lead or they got a percentage of the sale. So there was an incentive there, but they did that delete sheet that had the information on it. It was printed out, when the appointment was, what product was presented to the customer, what the price was it was left with, why they said they didn't buy it. And they'd be on the phone with those folks. But no, I agree with you 1,000%. It's about up in mind where it's about, some companies do billboards. We never were successful with billboards, but we had all our guys had monogram shirts, Statewide Remodeling. I mean, I could affect you. Marketing is.
Now we got wrap trucks and all that branding to go with it.
Yeah, when I sold the company, we had 8 trucks in Dallas that were for project managers, and every one of them had our logo on the side of it, or 1-800 on the side of the products that we sold. And we did a lot of radio with a couple of mainly talk show. Seemed to work better radio. Music radio never activated real well for us, but talk show did pretty well. I did the commercials. I wrote the spots. I produced the spots. They sent them in, then their engineers would manipulate them and we'd run them. But we were so prevalent on the radio, I could be standing in the line at the grocery store and talking to the clerk at the counter, and someone would see my shirt and they go, I know, I've heard you on the radio. And I opened up, or people would go, man, I didn't have to be wearing a shirt. I've heard your voice somewhere. And I always opened up every spot that I did. It goes, hi folks, I'm Frank Manzare, co-owner of Statewide Remodeling. And I go, oh, hi, folks. I'm Frank Man. That's it. Well, remember that we sold windows. Some boy, because they recognize my voice. That's top of mind awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Call soft drinks a Coke and called, tissue paper Kleenex. It's because those people branded the heck out of that name.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, and I agree with you. I learned, like I said, it was a dumb tax. These people come in, tried to sell us advertising. And I go, oh man, I did this 3 times stuff. What do you mean 3 months? Blah, blah, blah. They're right. You got to get in there and hang in there. I mean,
yeah, you do. You have to invest in marketing. I'm not here to push marketing by any means, but I heard you say earlier in the conversation, you were spending about 15% on your marketing spend. And I know the top 500 remodeling companies typically spend about 5-6%, which is still a pretty good percentage. But Frank, you wouldn't believe how many people I talk to, remodelers, builders, design build guys, that their marketing spend is less than 1%. I mean, maybe 0.5%. That's all they're investing in their marketing. And then they're wondering why they're not growing. And it's like, when you do marketing right, you get return on investment. So you're not paying for it anyways. Your customers are paying for it. So why aren't you investing more? And I really never get good answers on that. I mean, how would you be able to guide people to say, reinvest in your company, invest in your marketing is investing in yourself and your company growth?
Well, I think I have said some of it, and I would say it again, Bob, that, it just depends on what you want to do. If you're comfortable where, it goes back to the Tom Hopkins, you got to give up what you got to get what you want. He also says that a person's ability And this applies to company owners as well. A company ability to be successful is directly related to their ability to withstand pain and discomfort. Now you go, well, how does that work? Change is uncomfortable. And if you're in a place as a company owner where you're comfortable, it's going to be very hard for you to get out of that comfort zone and go spend that 50, let's say you're spending 1%, and you look down and go, well, how about, could you start out spending 5, maybe 1? And God dang, man, that's $10,000 a month. Well, I got a boat out here at the lake and the boathouse and the dock fee and blah, blah, blah. Now he's uncomfortable. Okay, well, could you do without that boat for maybe 2 years? You get a bigger boat?
Yeah, exactly.
Get uncomfortable. IBM did a study. I remember reading this years ago on their top 1% of salespeople, and their 1%, the top 1%, made twice as much money as everybody else. And they couldn't figure out why. What do these people got? It was comfort level. They had expensive lifestyle. They owned nice cars, big houses, took great trips, and they had got their comfort level where it was so high, they had to work to maintain it. It's like, how do you do? Well, reverse engineer it.
Yeah.
Spend money to make the money and then enjoy the fruits of your labor. And that's where a lot of companies, I remember in the beginning, I'd see these companies, we'd run an ad, and there was a publication in the Dallas market called Ad Pages. And it was a home improvement. They did, pest control, roofing, carpet cleaning, all those kind of things. We started out with a half-page ad, then we went to a full-page ad. And I remember at its peak, the best we did one year, I spent $100,000 in that year, and I did $1 million net. So it's 10%, man. I'm jumping up and down. If the guy sold the company, they screwed it all up. But the point being is that I looked at that magazine every month because we went out in it and I'm looking at the competition. And there was a company in there. It was somebody in Sons. I don't remember who it was. They run an ad about every 4 or 5 months. And I had the opportunity to talk to them down the road. We were competitors, and they didn't like me because, we kind of came in and took over a lot of the business.
Took that market share.
Oh yeah, we took like this.
Yep.
You don't create market, you take market.
Yep.
And I'm talking to the son, and I asked him, I said, your dad owned that company. I think his dad passed away or something, rest his soul. But I'm asking the son, I said, I noticed we did real well for Ad Pages, with Ad Pages for years, and you guys have occasion run an ad. I go, why do you run one every month? He goes, well, Daddy just didn't want to spend the money. We'd look at the end of the month and go, well, we got a little extra, let's do an ad. And I said, really? I said, oh, okay. And I didn't dispute that. That's stupid. I mean, you do it one time and then you're gone 4 months. Those people saw you 1 month. They saw us next month. They saw us next month. And this month they go, oh yeah, we wanted some window. I see.
Yeah. It's like, you don't throw a billboard up for 1 month and then take it down and say, oh, that's my marketing for the year. I hope, it didn't work out very well. I wonder why.
We tried billboards. We never got them to work. I did it for month after month. I created a program, and you're probably familiar with it, that was around in the 70s and 80s, but it disappeared when the recession came in 08. In 08, we spent about $200,000 in print advertising with the Dallas Morning News. And of course, now that's, go back 20 years roughly. 08, yeah, it was 08, 18. Yeah, so it's almost 20 years. And it never was a good ad ratio, but it supported the company and the brand. So we stopped it totally. The guy I'm not mentioning names, but the guy that was my rep, I told him at the end of the year, at the end of 08, because we didn't get hit by the recession until like August of 08. I mean, it's just like, bam, but just, the business dropped by 30%. And, we're scrambling around thinking, how are we going to stay in business? And my partner and I cutting salaries and things like that, ours included. And so I told him at the end of this, I said, guy, I think it's Glenn. I said, we're out of the paper. Well, what are you talking about, man? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I just can't afford it. I explained it to him. January, he calls me. Hey, I got a hell of a deal on a half-page ad. Glenn can't do it. He called me in February. I got a great.
Of course he does.
I said, Glenn, I can't do it. He calls me in March. I said, look, he goes, man, what can we do? I said, I'll tell you what we can do. I said, we'll run an ad and I'll pay you when I get a lead. Wait. Oh, no, we could never do that. What would we want to do that? And I said, exactly. I said, because you ain't got no skin in the game. And I said, I can't write checks right now.
Great.
So about 2 weeks later, he calls back. He goes, how does that work? I said, what do you mean, how does it work? And he said, well, I mean, how do we know? And I said, we used a service called Who's Calling. It came out of the car industry, basically recorded every inbound call to a car dealership. That's when you run ads in the newspaper, a lot of not digital things like that. So I said, here's how it works. We use Who's Calling. I said, we'll set up a dedicated number. We can we can use your 800 number in the paper. And so it goes through your switch, comes through ours. The calls are recorded. You can listen to them. And every time I get a qualified lead, this means it's got to last longer than, I think it was 30 seconds. It can't be a service call. It can't be it's a unique call. It can't be 2 or 3 of them. Same people calling back. Someone's listening. Because that's how people would get business. They would do, what do they call it? Prospecting. They see an ad. Man, I got a newspaper over here, $10 too. There you go. How much would you pay us? And I said, I'll pay you $150 for a window lead and $200 for a sunroof lead. And he goes, well, I don't know if I said, well, yeah, I don't care. I'm do anything we can buy. Well, window lead calls back. And he goes, hey, man, I got the VP of marketing. Can I bring him with me? He wants you to explain this to him. I said, sure. So the guy came, we sat down, and he goes, we'll do that, Frank, but we want $10,000 up front. I said, I don't care. It's owned by Belo Corporation. I said, you guys ain't going anywhere. Sure.
Yeah.
It took about 2 months for that to activate, and we were doing about a 7 or 8% ad ratio off those leads. The deal worked so well for them, they created a department of 4 people to analyze the ads, color, black and white, what section of the paper they went in, what day they ran them, and they gauged the results. Soon I had 4 or 5 competitors in there. Didn't bother me. Our ad ratio stayed the same. We managed to close the same percentage of the leads we got.
It's funny. That model is basically Home Advisor, Angie's List, those house those kind of companies now. Pay per lead, pay per performance, basically. But
Angie's List wasn't even in existence then.
No.
Radio. We did it. I did it with ESPN radio. It didn't work. I got WBAT to try it for a short period of time, but we'd already been on the radio with them for a long. We've been on the radio with them for, we cut back the radio schedule for 09, but by 09, we'd been on the radio with them for 10 years. So it was hard, for them to go back and instead of sending me a bill, for the sponsoring. Terry Dorsey, who was probably the very well-known radio talent there, and his partner, Hawkeye's still there. Terry passed away, retired. But we advertised with those guys and we did pretty well with it. But that was the stuff, and it started out with using the radio talent. And then the ad agency we were working with, probably 10 years before we sold the company, told me, he said, Frank, I pulled all my clients off endorsements. And the owners of the company, as long as they can talk and sound good, and he said, you do, I'm having them do it. And I said, well, yeah, but what's the results? He goes, not any difference. I said, I'm recording spots. So I had a microphone that's sitting over there on my other desk in my office here, but I had a microphone sitting on the desk in my office in Grapevine, and I would go on and I'd write the spot, time it, it'd be a minute long, and I'd record it, download it, and send it to the ad agency, and they look at it, make sure it met the time, and send it to the station. And we did that for probably the last 8, maybe 10 years when we had the company there. And, it was probably a 27 or 28% ad ratio. So it was way above our budget, but it supported, the way I looked at it. And here again, this is something that speaks to your marketing costs. When I say 15%, let's say you say, well, it ought to be at least 8 or 9. Most guys out there are spending 7 or 8%. Oh, that's your number, but that's the end of the day number. That's the bucket. You may do radio that's 20. You may do TV that's 25. And then you may have referrals, previous customers that are 0. All that goes in the bucket. So that, when I do my P&L or, my balance, whatever you want to call it, I'm not an accountant. At the end of the day, all the money we spent to get sales, is 6%. You're a winner.
Yeah, absolutely.
My partner and I used to butt heads. But we can't keep doing this radio. It's 30%. And I said, Rob, what's our ad ratio budget? 15. Where are we told? We're at 14.5. I'm going to lunch. Bye. That's my point, is that quick micromanaging, look at the picture. And it's the same thing that a lot of dealers do. I talk to guys, oh my God, at these dealer meetings and listen to some of this stuff.
So many people, like you said, they don't want to get uncomfortable, or they don't want to change. And I always think of one of my favorite lyrics from the band Rush, one of my favorite bands from the 70s, 80s. They have a lyric that says, "Changes aren't permanent, but change is." There'll always be change, and you need to keep adapting if you're going to keep growing into the future. As our world changes, we're not doing billboards much anymore. We're not doing print advertising much anymore. It's the internet, it's social media, it's getting out there in these associations, like you said, networking, relationship building. But whatever you're doing that's got you to where you're at now is probably not going to be the same things that get you to that next level and that next level beyond that.
Well, and the thing that, Bob, that I think everybody needs to understand, and most companies, I'm not trying to act like I got all the answers. Everybody else is stupid. That's not the case. Is that grassroots stuff still works. Job signs in the yard, open houses. I can't tell you, we did this. We'd go build a sunroom and get permission from the people when we built the room. We'd like to have an open house here on a Saturday morning after the room's done. And of course, you're 100% satisfied. And what we're going to do, we're going to advertise, or we're going to put some signs out the yards of some of your neighbors. We'll get permission. And basically, I had donuts and coffee and have an open house in the sunroom for 2 hours on Saturday morning. If we were in a subdivision and they had like a community center with a pool, this sunroom's on trailers. They were little, and you could pull the trailer up, and you would had jacks, like a camper, when you jack it up.
Yeah.
And then we'd pull the trailer out from under, sets the sunroom, looked like we built it right there. It's like 8 by 10. It wasn't big. We talked to the people of these homeowners association, same thing. We'd like to come down, we'll pay you a couple of $100 for the donate to the HOA. We're going to have some coffee and donuts and have a couple of people here talking about sunrooms. Can we do that? Yeah. And we'd hang a flyer up on the front door to the community center. If they had a newsletter, we'd advertise in that and say, hey, Statewide's going to be in your community center on Saturday XY from Y to 10 to 12. Come on by and check out, home improvement. So there's tons of grassroots ways. People don't have to spend a ton of money. If you don't have $10,000 or $15,000 to spend, and I did some of those in the beginning, it's like home shows. When we started out, I had some guys build me a home show display, about $1,000, and I carried it in my truck, and I set it up, and I unfolded the table, and I went down there and worked Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and I ran those leads on Monday. And that's how the company started. I mean, it's, that's so, but those opportunities, even when you're a big company, are still there. And it really speaks to tone. It speaks to top of mind awareness. So that we see them at the home shows. Hell, we see them down in the parking lot at the HEB grocery store, or we'll see them. I mean, we were all over the place. You couldn't go anywhere and not see a Home Depot logo, flag flying. I did a car show. I had a car show big once. It'd draw 150 cars. I'd do it in the middle of the summer when it was 100 degrees outside. The car club I was in, we talked about Camaro the other day. The car club I was in, and they call it because my nickname was because I've got a car that's got a blower on it. Blower nickname. Oh,
That's your 69 Camaro, right?
back in the 50s.
Yeah.
The guy that's the head of the club called me Hup, and he would call my car show the Huppapalooza. But I would do it in the middle of the summer. I mean, I would try to pick the hottest. And people go, why do you do it in the middle of the summer? I'll tell you why. We had a 5,000 square foot showroom. It's air conditioned, and there's all these bath venues in there. There were samples of windows, sunrooms, all the products we did. And everybody that came to the show, there was usually 300, 400, 500 total people, spectators as well as car owners. And I said, so you got a couple coming inside to get some water and get out of the heat. And they're walking around, and the wife goes, oh, look, baby, I've been thinking about changing. We ought to change that bathroom. This is a tub to shower conversion. I said, what's the guy going to say? Honey, we can't afford it. Yeah, you got a $60,000 car sitting out the car show. Don't tell me that. And so what happened is I would do enough sales volume off the car show to pay for the car show.
There you go.
What I'm trying to make, Bob, is that, there's all kinds of stuff. It doesn't have to be, and I'm not saying that high tech and digital and SEO and paid search and lead aggregators is not good. They're great. And as long as you write a check for those aggregators, they'll keep feeding you leads. But yeah, we're doing the grassroots stuff. It's a comfort level. People go, I don't want to I'm not going down to a damn home show. Hell, I'm going fishing Saturday. Fine.
You make choices. Yep. You make those choices. You live with them. If you're not growing growing big enough, quick enough, then maybe think about, the choices you're making.
This ain't the dream you're growing. If you're ripe, you're rotten. And there's a lady named Mary Crowley. I don't know if you ever heard of her company. I don't think it's around anymore. It was called Home Interiors. Now, who you probably do remember, if you keep up with professional basketball, is the Dallas Mavericks. He used to be owned by a guy named Don Carter. And he was always on the sideline wearing a cowboy hat. That was Mary Crowley's son. I mean, he was part of the biz, big hundreds of millions of dollars a year. And Mary Crowley was like Mary Kay. You probably heard of Mary Kay. Her and Mary Crowley were very good friends. And Mary Crowley had some things about motivation. She always wore on her dress a bumblebee pin. And the reason she wore it is because, about what the word is, a bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly. Its body's too big for its little wing. That was what she wore it for. But she had a lot of sayings. And one of her sayings, and I always remember this, she says, we're free up to the moment of choice. Then the choice controls the chooser. And that's what you just said. I'm going fishing Saturday. Okay. Be happy where your business is, because it's not going to grow until you take action.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to commit. No, those are some great truisms there. Frank, we're going to have to wrap up here. I definitely want to have you back on the show here. I think you've got a lot more that you can share in terms of your sales process. I know you got a 5-step sales process that really has some great concepts in it. I'd love to hear more about your exit as well, for those remodelers out there that are really looking to eventually sell their business, and everyone should be building their business to sell it. Whether you do that or not is beside the point, but build your business so that it is sellable. So I'd love to talk to you more about that, but we got to wrap up today. Really enjoyed having you on the show. I hope that you've had fun, and I really have enjoyed your insights here so far.
Well, thank you, Bob. Yeah, I mean, you can tell I have a passion still about the business, and, I don't mind sharing stuff, and it was fun. I know when I first got into the business selling that siding at Reynolds Aluminum, that's one of the things that the guy that mentored me and taught me how to sell. Basically, he didn't teach me a selling system, but he made me understand a lot of things about human nature, how to read people and things like that. He goes, hey man, on top of everything else, we need to have fun here.
Yeah. Heck yeah. I think we checked that box today, Frank.
Oh, good. Yeah, I did. Well, personally, I'm happy to. If you want to have me back, different top focus strictly on sales training, stuff like that, because I've done that. I developed training programs, and I stood by them year after year, even as things evolved. That there's companies out there that you can hire, remodelers can, that have a 10-step selling program. But if you look at the 5 steps incorporate their 10 steps. It's really the same. It's taking the prospective customer from the beginning all the way to the contract.
Yeah. That whole sales cycle. Well, we'll definitely jump into that, Frank. Thanks a lot for coming on today. I want to thank the rest of our listeners and viewers today. Thanks for tuning in, turning on here to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast. And we'll catch all you guys on the next episode. Take care, everyone.
Hey, if you liked our podcast, join the remodeling community and hit subscribe. We would love to hear from you, so be sure to share your thoughts on what you might want to hear about in future episodes. If you're ready to take your business to the next level, visit homeremodelerSEO.com and check out our services that can help build your foundation for success. Thanks for tuning in to the Home Remodeler Toolbox Podcast, and we'll see you on the next episode.